Hey y'all. Today we're going to talk about the strangest things that I have seen in Britain as an American living here in the UK so far. Number one, the electrical outlets. So I actually did a whole video about the electrical outlet. I'll leave a link to that video in the description box below. So the biggest difference that I have found when it comes to the electrical outlets is the difference in the plugs. Now, the first is quite obvious, where in the US, you have two prong. That is the primary source of your electrical outlets and your electrical devices. Whereas here in the UK, almost everything has this three-prong approach and definitely more sturdy. And I think you use a higher wattage of electricity here in UK. And I think that might be probably why. It's definitely more secure. I remember in the US, my house in the US, there's a lot of electrical outlets. We had the two prongs where it was like loose and the two prongs would fall out. The other thing is just the structure itself is just much more durable and sturdy. The third thing would be that you have the electrical safety switches on your outlets that we do not have in the US. Basically, the power is always running to the outlets in the US, and you just plug your device in and you go. Whereas here in the UK, you plug your device in and you have to actually turn the power on so that the electricity runs to that specific outlet. And each outlet has its own switch. If you have two outlets, you can have one on and one off. If you only have one thing plugged in, then you just turn on the power to that one. It's definitely safer. I think it probably saves some money. I don't know how much money that saves, but psychologically to me, I feel like I'm saving money. So I'm the one constantly going around turning off switches now. My only issue is I still have a problem remembering to turn them on when I need to use whatever device I'm trying to use. The second thing that I found that I never saw until I came to the UK is people washing dishes with soap, but not rinsing them afterwards. Now, I don't know if this is like a cultural thing or it's maybe just there are people in the US that do that. And the people in the UK, I know there's people in the UK that do rinse their dishes sometimes, but I have to say a lot of the people that I've met here in the UK do not rinse and they just leave the soap on and put it in the dish drain. For me, that's really, really strange. I don't know that it really matters in all fairness, but my whole approach to washing dishes is to get everything off of the dishes, and that includes the soap. I don't know. I don't know if this really makes any difference at all, to be honest with you, but yeah, that's something I never saw in the US personally when I lived there. But I see a lot here while living here in the UK. Just a sideline, guys. I hope that you are enjoying this video. If you are and you want to get some more exclusive content, you want to help us raise money for the Royal British Legion and keep this channel as ad-free as possible, please consider becoming a channel member. Just hit that join button below. No pressure at all, just something that you can think about for extra content and a little quiet corner of YouTube that you don't get anywhere else. The next thing that's really strange that I've found, that I've discovered living here in the UK, is dressing up for dart competitions. First of all, love darts. Think it's awesome. Love playing them. My dad had a dartboard when we were growing up. I'm not very good at it, but I do enjoy it very much. And there's dart leagues and stuff like that in America. Definitely not something that's exclusive to the UK. However, the whole culture around darts competitions, where they expect the patrons and the audience to dress up in what you call fancy dress, basically dressing up in costumes. For the US people that might be watching this, or for translating in my own head, they dress up and you're actually looked at weird if you don't. I love that culture because I think it's definitely unique. It's definitely tons and tons of fun to watch. So I could imagine that being at a dart competition, all dressed up and participating in all of the fanfare that goes with it, would also be a lot more fun. And for me personally, any type of organization that's going to promote dressing up and being a little bit silly, I'm all about. The next one is probably going to be a little bit controversial, but I do feel the need to speak on it because I do think it might be a little bit representative of each culture. But how all the TV presenters here in the UK look like real people. This is, of course, as opposed to a lot of the perfectionist, very almost actress supermodel-y look on most of the television, cable news shows, a lot of TV anchors, a lot of presenters. They just have this really polished, specific, trendy look about them all the time. Whereas here in the UK, when I'm watching the news, when I'm watching any kind of game show, television show, it feels a lot more comfortable and cozy because it feels like I'm talking to an equal as opposed to someone who is, just in a different world. I don't know. It's that whole Hollywood thing seems to stretch all across television mediums and even online, to be honest. A lot of American podcasters and stuff like that seem to just succumb to the same type of appearance driven priority. Whereas I don't want to say it's not a priority here because everyone dresses nice, they look good, they, have hair, nails, makeup done, that kind of stuff, wear nice suits, things like that. It just doesn't seem to be the emphasis on looking perfect or looking a certain way when you're on television or you're presenting. It just is a completely different vibe, and I think it's a little bit elitist in America, to be honest. The next thing is funny, but it's something that's kind of a running joke in my family, and I just can't get over it. I live in Southeast England, Kent, the Garden of England, and it is overrun by sheep. Not just exclusive to this area. There are sheep all over England. Wherever we've gone, there's sheep in Scotland and Wales when we've gone there as well. There's sheep everywhere. I come from New Jersey, which is ironically the garden state in the United States, but it has a lot of the land has been developed. It's no longer farmland and it's more like shopping malls and parking lots. But I remember when I was younger, there was a lot more farmland and it was primarily cows that we would see, but it wasn't something that you wouldn't see them all along, like, the highway as you're driving. They're not as prevalent, I guess, I don't know. And they have sheep, obviously, in America as well. It's just for some reason, it feels like we're overrun by sheep here in the UK. It just seems like they're everywhere. I don't know if it's just me and I notice them personally more, but my child seems to agree with me. There are so many sheep here in UK, and that's definitely strange from my personal point of view. The next is something I have talked about before, but it definitely bears repeating. Modern businesses mixed in historical buildings. So you're walking down High Street and you see these beautiful buildings. The architecture is ornate. You see an old Tudor style pub. And then at the bottom, you see this big sign that says Subway on it or KFC or something. It's really, really funny to me because in America, everything was built yesterday, right? We keep very few historical landmarks. And even if we do, the history doesn't go past 250 years for obvious reasons. And here in the UK, obviously, for the same obvious reasons, you definitely have more buildings that have been here a lot longer than the United States has been around. But it's really funny to see those modern day things like a supermarket built into the walls of a castle or former castle ruins or something. I don't know. To me, as an American living here in the UK, that is really strange and something that always kind of tickles me a little bit when we're out and about. This one is a strange one. I don't think I've talked about it before, but I noticed it when we went to Windsor and we were looking at the skyscape of the Windsor Castle, against the winter night because we were there in the winter time. And we all of a sudden, out of the blue, saw this like plane going over the castle turret. And I was like, well, that's unusual. I don't see that every day, especially in America. Because we don't have castles in America because like we don't have castles. We have like fake castles that you can tell they're fake. It's very inauthentic. So it was really, really weird and strange to me to see a plane flying over a castle. Obviously, I know in modern day that's normal here in the UK, and logically, of course, I can make reason with that and everything. But the initial seeing of it, very first time when I'm looking at this beautiful castle that has been there for hundreds of years, and all of a sudden this very modern mode of transportation starts flying over it. Definitely one of the strangest moments I've had as an American living in the UK, I'll tell you that. The next one I know is uniquely British, and it is a staple, but I can't get over it. It looks strange, it tastes strange, the ingredients in it are strange to me as an American. Black pudding. I don't like the taste of it personally. I know that my partner goes crazy for it. My partner is British, for those of you who don't know, and he loves it. And whenever he can have a chance to have black pudding, he definitely goes for it. I just can't, for some reason, maybe think I know what the ingredients are and I can't get past that in my American uptight way. I don't know what it is, but it is really strange to see black pudding on a plate of breakfast for me. Even the traditional English breakfast, which I know includes black pudding. I don't know, for some reason, it just looks weird on the plate. It looks like some kind of like olive loaf be loaf pimento in pumpernickel bread. It just looks like it should be some kind of bread to me, but obviously tastes extremely different. Definitely try it if you haven't already. But yeah, for me, black pudding is on the strange list by far. Next, I have not so gamey game shows. You have game shows here, of course, but the game shows that are like not really game shows are just kind of like celebrities getting together and talking crap about either each other or the news or the government or the king or the royals or Americans. Basically, whatever is happening, whatever is noteworthy and can have something made fun of it about, which is most things in the world today. It's very, very British to me. From my point of view, anyway, as an American. And I don't think we have anything like that in America. I think we just take things way too seriously. We have these comedic news channels that kind of make fun of the news and stuff a little bit, but there's always a serious undertone that is connected to it. It's never just outright making fun of it. It's something that I actually love watching when I do watch television here in the UK, which isn't often just because I don't watch a lot of television. But when I do, it is these types of not so gamey game shows that I really do enjoy. They are a lot of fun. Post office in a store. I know you used to have designated buildings for post office, and that's the way it still is in most places in the US. There are places where, like, some convenience drugstores, like the equivalent of a Boots, where you might be able to get stamps or something like that, but you would not be able to mail a package or anything in the US. Also, in the US, you'll be able to mail packages and stuff right from your house because almost all United States dwellings have some kind of post box or mailbox in their house. So you are able to send packages and things like that right from your door. You don't have to go and like mail a letter at a mailbox or anything like that. So seeing post office in the store where you have to go and get, pick up packages or send packages, you have to walk basically through a boot esque kind of store. I don't know if there's any Americans that are watching this. Imagine going to a CVS or a Walgreens, and at the back, where you might get your prescriptions, there's also a post office, and that's where the only way you can mail a package. I suppose like there are some buildings left still that you could go and mail. I just remember when I first landed and I had to go to the post office to get the physical card of my visa. And I had to do it within a few days, and I had to show my passport was stamped and all. I went through customs and all that kind of stuff, and my ID and stuff. I had to do it at a post office, and I just remember being really baffled as we're walking through the high street, and we just walking to a random store, and we had to walk all the way to the back. It just seemed like a normal like store clerk that would check you out that was doing the post office stuff. In America, postal workers are like official federal like government workers. Uh, of course, there's much stricter of course, many of you know there's much stricter gun laws here in the UK as far as the public owning and operating firearms, but there's also really strict rules around the police and law enforcement using guns as well. A lot of that is completely alien to Americans. Most police forces in the United States are heavily armed, almost militarized. And when I say militarized, I'm serious. Like a lot of the leftover outdated military weaponry and vehicles, like tanks and stuff like that, are often sold to local police forces or state police forces at a discount, often heavily armed. I don't remember ever being in a situation in the United States where there was law enforcement and there was not armed with them. So it's still a little bit of a strange thing to me to see police officers or, anyone in law enforcement here in the UK without guns. But it's a welcome change, definitely. Being called love by strangers. I know this happens. I know it's a normal thing. I know it's a sign of respect. It doesn't mean anything personal, but it feels personal because I'm not used to it. It feels to me, as an American living here, like they're assuming we have some kind of relationship or connection. And I don't know, that makes me a little bit uncomfortable sometimes. Again, I understand that that's not really what they mean. And gotten a little bit better about not taking it personally or taking it that way. But it does take me by surprise whenever strangers call me love. And I don't know why that specifically really just, you can call me darling, you can call me hun, people call me duck sometimes, but love for some reason is the one that really, really still stands out, and it's still really, really strange to me as an American. Seeing the old school horse and buggies being driven down the road. Now, I lived in Pennsylvania, and for those of you who might not know the area, there is a huge rural part of the area in Western Pennsylvania. And in that area is there was a settlement of Dutch. They're called Amish, and they literally will still drive horse and buggies. They use wooden pegs instead of metal nails. They don't have any electricity. They live completely off the grid. They do a lot of farming in that area, and they do obviously have relationships with the local towns and to sell their goods and things like that because they do have to do that and obviously to survive. But that was the only time in America that I ever saw like the horse and buggy outside of like New York City and Philadelphia, touristy stuff around Central Park and stuff. Here in the UK, there have been many times where I have been in the car or I've been walking and I just see a horse and buggy just right up next to me as if it's normal everyday life. And these are like not remote areas. They are on fairly well traveled roads and definitely villages. Not smaller villages though, bigger villages. But it's so weird to see to see the horse and buggy on the road and it not be an Amish person for me as an American. Living here in the UK, I see lots of strange stuff, and I expect that because I know that that is part of the culture here, but it's something that it still just takes me back every time I see it. Not negative, not positive, just one of those things I was just like, right, they don't have Amish people here, and that is a completely different culture here in the UK. I'm not in America anymore, clearly. The next two things have to do with British football culture. Um, Stark differences from American sport culture. The first one is that away fans are completely separated from home fans. I know this is true for football. I don't know if it's true for any other sport. So you guys can let me know in the comments. In British football, in the Premier Leagues and things like that, the home fans have a completely separate entrance and completely separate seating area than they do in from the away fans. And that is something very alien to me as an American here in UK. Because in the United States, all mixed. Anyone can buy a ticket anywhere. It doesn't matter as long as you have the money. That's really what it's all about in America. But if you go to a baseball game, a football game, a basketball game, you can be sitting right next to an away fan or right next to a home fan if you're there to see the away team. It's not unheard of at all. It's very, very normal that you mix and mingle like that in American sports, but it's definitely not normal here, at least for British football culture. The other thing about British football culture that's really strange to me is that you have your stadiums in the middle of your neighborhood. Of course, it's not all stadiums, but most of them are. I know the history of it. It's because, you know, they're central to this city and it's in the middle of houses. Very strange, but fun and unique. But in America, most of the stadiums are not within the neighborhoods. They're kind of in complexes and stuff just outside of town or city. And you have to drive there, of course, because America. They have things within the complex, like, to do, like, bars and that kind of stuff and activities to do, but it just doesn't have the same kind of feeling because it's not part of the actual city, you know, it's not you can't just walk up to the stadium and, like, take a pic. Old Yankee Stadium used to be like that. I remember I did go to Old Yankee Stadium, which is a baseball team for those of you who might not know, in New York City, and it did used to be in the middle of the Bronx, and it was a really cool experience, but they've since moved it and it's not the same kind of experience, I must say. They have some of the older stuff that they've incorporated into the new stadium, but it doesn't have the same kind of vibe. But when I did go to a football game here in the UK and I walked from the pub right to the football stadium, that made me forget the same kind of vibe as when I first walked up to Yankee Stadium from all of the bars and everything that were around the stadium. So I did really enjoy that. But those are two things about British football culture that are completely strange to me. The last thing seems a little bit unique and maybe ridiculous to a lot of British people, but I'm going to put it out there anyway. Old school keys to unlock my home. Like, they're not just decorative, they actually still unlock my home. They look like old keys from castles. I mean, the house is modern. It's not like I live in, you know, a 15th century house that has no modern convenience in it or anything, but it still has that old school lock on it. I don't remember ever having those old school keys in the US ever, at least as functional keys for your home. And every time I have to unlock my back door, it feels a little nostalgic and kind of like I've stepped back in time for just a second. Even though I'm walking into a very modern kitchen and stuff, it still feels quintessentially British to me, and it's kind of fun. I do like it. So those are the strangest things that I've ever seen in the UK here as an American living here. Let me know what you guys' opinions are in the comments below. And yeah, I'll see you next time.